My name is David Turner, and at the time of these events, my wife Susan and I had been married for just over 20 years. We met in college and married shortly after we graduated. Our daughters, Emily and Kate, were only a year apart. Emily was a freshman in college, and Kate was now a senior in high school. About 6 weeks ago, we took Emily to college, a large state university 2 hours away. She was staying in the freshman dorm, sharing a room with a close friend of hers. Kate wasn't sure where she would be attending school next year, but there was a decent chance she'd end up at the same university as her sister. The girls fought like most siblings, but they always had each other's backs and were quite close. Having Emily leave left an emotional hole in our lives, but we were happy for her and the adventures that lay ahead of her. I worked as a partner in a large accounting firm, and Susan was a supervisor for a local building supply contractor. She'd returned to work when both girls started school and worked her way up the company ladder, despite her college degree in English. I earned more than Susan, but we were financially comfortable and could afford a nice home, newer cars, and other luxuries. Susan seemed to enjoy her work as well. That Friday, I headed home early from work, thinking about the quiet weekend ahead. Kate was at a school camp until Sunday night, and I saw an opportunity for some romantic time with my wife, maybe a cozy dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, followed by some much-needed closeness. Since Emily's departure, we'd both been a bit off balance, and a weekend alone without the kids sounded like the perfect way to reconnect. When I arrived, I noticed Susan's car was already in the garage. She must have decided to leave work a little early as well. Perhaps she was on the same page and had the same thoughts in mind. I thought I'd surprise her by suggesting we go out for dinner. Not seeing her in the kitchen, I headed toward our bedroom to change clothes and see if she was there. Walking down the hallway, I called out, "Honey, I'm home. Are you in the bedroom?" "Yes, David, I'm in here." When I entered, I saw Susan seated at her vanity, carefully applying makeup to her face. She was wearing a little black dress and the pearl necklace I had given her last Christmas. Her dressy shoes were set on the floor beside her. I noticed an open overnight bag on the bench, partially packed with a mix of lingerie and more casual clothes. "Oh, wow, Susan. I must have forgotten we were going somewhere this weekend. Where are we going? I can get ready really fast." Susan looked up at me, her expression serious. "David, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you. I have plans this weekend. A date, actually. I didn't expect you to be home this early, and I didn't want to have this conversation until right before I left. I know you'll be upset, and I don't want to fight with you." "A date?" I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that didn't come. "Are you serious? I don't remember us agreeing to any open marriage or anything like that. Please tell me this is a joke and that you've planned a weekend for us." Susan sighed as if she'd rehearsed this response. "David, it's just one weekend. I'll be back on Sunday and things will be as they were. I just need this time for myself, something different, something rejuvenating. Since Emily left, I've been feeling down and I think I need to do this for me. It's just one weekend, out of hundreds we've had together. In the end, it might even help our marriage." "How long have you been planning this, Susan? Who is this man? Are you leaving me for him?" "No, of course not. I love you, David, and only you. His name isn't important. I'm not going to tell you. He's just a friend. He's married, too, with kids. We've had lunch a few times, but nothing's happened between us. I didn't want to cheat behind your back, so I'm being open with you about it." Stunned, I felt like I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. She continued, as if reciting from a script. "He finds me attractive. He makes me feel young again. I'm not getting any younger, and I need this for my self-esteem. Can't you understand? I'm just asking for a weekend pass, and I'll be back to make you the happiest husband again." "So you're saying that you need one weekend of adventure to feel alive, and it won't affect us?" My disbelief was now mixed with a growing resentment. "Do you hear yourself, Susan? You sound completely different." She looked at me calmly, as if prepared for my reaction. David, it's only one weekend out of thousands we've been together. You're the one I love, and I'm not going anywhere. I wish you'd be understanding, just this once. I stood there, unable to process the reality unfolding before me. Then a thought crossed my mind that made me smirk despite myself. If she was so set on this weekend plan, perhaps I could turn the situation to my advantage. So, you're determined to go through with this? I asked, my voice steady. Yes, I am, she replied. But it doesn't have to change anything between us. Well then, I forced myself to stay calm. I suppose you've been convinced that just a weekend won't have any consequences. All right, if this is how it is, I'll plan my weekend as well. But promise me one thing. Leave your phone on so I can reach you if there's an emergency. Susan hesitated, studying my face. Okay, I'll leave my phone on, but you have to promise not to interfere or follow me. Deal, I replied, adding, but you still have time to change your mind. Without another word, she turned back to her vanity, signaling the conversation was over. I went to my office, feeling like my life had turned upside down. A thought crept into my mind as I scrolled through my contacts. I found a number that had been in my phone for years, untouched. I dialed it and waited. Hi, it's David Turner, I said when the line connected. Oh, David! The voice on the other end, gentle and warm, belonged to Anna Pierce, a woman who had once been my assistant and friend. I haven't heard from you in ages. How are you? I took a deep breath, memories flooding back. Anna had been a remarkable assistant when she worked for me 10 years ago. At that time, I was a senior associate, not yet a partner. Her husband, Matt, was a young executive, and they had one child together. Tragically, Matt had died in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving Anna and their son, Luke, devastated. I had supported her through that time, helping her secure a legal settlement that allowed her financial security. Over those months, we'd grown close, almost too close, and we had parted ways before anything inappropriate could happen, out of respect for my marriage. Hearing her voice brought back a flood of emotions, and I found myself confiding in her. Not great, Anna. Susan just told me she's spending the weekend with another man. She says it's a one-time thing, but I don't know how to process this. There was silence on the line before she spoke, her voice filled with empathy. I'm so sorry, David. I can't believe she would do that to you. I thought your marriage was solid. So did I said, the weight of the situation finally hitting me. Anna listened quietly as I explained the situation, and then she offered, Look, Luke is spending the weekend with his grandparents. If you need company, you're welcome to join me. I was going to have a quiet weekend myself, but I'd be more than happy to spend it with you. We agreed that I would pick her up in an hour. It felt strange and exhilarating, almost like reconnecting with an old friend after years apart. When I arrived, she welcomed me with a warm smile, and we decided to go to the same Italian restaurant where I had originally planned to take Susan. Over dinner, our conversation flowed effortlessly. The connection between us felt as natural as it had all those years ago, perhaps even stronger. By the time the weekend ended, I knew that my life had irrevocably changed. Anna had been a rock of support, reminding me of a version of myself I had nearly forgotten. As I drove back home, I felt both clarity and uncertainty. What awaited me back at the house was a confrontation I couldn't avoid. The next part of this journey, however painful, was necessary if I was to rebuild the life I wanted. As I pulled into the driveway, the weight of the weekend settled over me. My mind replayed the quiet conversations and laughter Anna and I had shared, the sense of warmth and understanding that had resurfaced between us. I felt renewed clarity and knew what I had to do next. I walked into the house and saw Susan's car was already in the garage, confirming that she'd returned from her weekend. Taking a steadying breath, I braced myself for whatever I'd face inside. Susan entered the living room as I put my keys down, pulling her overnight bag behind her, a contented smile on her face. She looked up, surprised to see me standing there, but quickly recovered with a bright, almost cheerful greeting. "Hi, sweetheart. I knew you'd be here waiting for me." She set her bag aside, approaching me as if nothing had changed. "See? I'm the same wife you knew before I left. And you, the best husband in the world, gave me this one little break. I'll make it up to you, David, I promise. Maybe I'll even put on something special, and we can have our own private celebration before Kate gets back." The calmness I'd felt around Anna was replaced with a cold anger, though I held it back. Instead, I walked over to the side table where my phone was propped up, quietly recording. I had decided to get her words on record, as a precaution. "Susan, don't insult my intelligence," I said, my voice hard. "I know what this weekend was about, and I know it wasn't just an innocent escape." A flicker of something crossed her face, maybe surprise or maybe guilt. She looked away. "David, I told you, it was just one weekend. It was supposed to help us. I thought you'd understand that." "I'm supposed to understand that you wanted to sleep with someone else? Just to feel alive?" I took a step closer. "And I'm supposed to believe it was just once?" Her face flushed. "Look, he's married too. He has young kids and he's not leaving his wife. It's just an experience, David. It doesn't change how I feel about you." "It changes everything," I said, my voice dropping. "You threw away our marriage for something meaningless." She shook her head, as if my reaction were an inconvenience she hadn't anticipated. "You're being dramatic. He made me feel wanted, David, made me feel special. You have no idea what that feels like, to have someone look at you like you're beautiful." "Oh, really?" I asked, my voice low. "And what happens now? Do we pretend this never happened so you can go back to this guy when you feel unwanted again?" Her jaw tightened. "I told you I don't plan on seeing him again. I just needed one weekend to feel like I mattered. Like I wasn't invisible." "That's what I don't understand, Susan," I replied, feeling a painful finality. "You were never invisible to me. But you made me feel that way, the second you stepped out of this house with him." She blinked, absorbing my words in silence. For the first time, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "I'm sorry, David. I thought I could just take this one break and come back, and everything would go back to normal." "Normal?" I laughed bitterly. "Nothing is normal anymore. In fact, I'm going to tell you something. When you left, I remembered someone who always saw me, always valued me. Anna." Her face registered shock. "You didn't—" "Yes, I did. I spent the weekend with her, and for the first time in years, I felt like myself. I let the truth sink in, unfiltered. Anna respected my marriage more than you did, even after her husband's death. We'd never crossed any lines because she knew what my vows meant to me. But when you walked out, you gave me a reason to reconnect with her." Susan's face crumbled as she slumped into the nearest chair, looking at the floor. I can't believe this is happening. I didn't think—" "No, you didn't think," I cut in. "If you had, you'd have realized the pain you'd cause." A silence hung in the room, weighted and empty. Finally, she whispered, "So, what happens now?" I took a deep breath, my heart heavy. "I'm filing for divorce, Susan. This marriage can't survive what you did." She looked up, her eyes wide and pleading. "Please, David. I know I was wrong. I was selfish and stupid. But can't we work through this? We could try counseling, anything. I was just lost." "It's too late," I said, shaking my head. "You made your choice when you walked out on us, and I made mine. Anna and I have reconnected, and I don't want to let go of what I feel for her." The weight of my words hung in the air, and I saw the finality settle over Susan. She sobbed quietly, clutching her arms around herself as if the world had collapsed. I'll be fair in the divorce, I continued after a long pause. I'll make sure you're financially secure, but I can't stay with you after this. As she nodded numbly, I took my phone, ending the recording that captured our conversation. The decision, though painful, felt right. I knew there was no going back. Later that day, I called Emily, who was away at college, and broke the news to her gently. She was devastated, but I assured her I'd explain everything in person and asked her to wait before calling her mom or sister. That evening, when Kate returned from camp, I shared the situation with her, and although shaken, she understood that our family's future would look different now. The next few weeks moved quickly. I stayed in a guest room at home to support Kate and help her process the news. Once things settled, I moved out into a temporary apartment, balancing time between supporting the girls and reconnecting with Anna. True to my word, I drafted a fair settlement for Susan, ensuring she had financial support and keeping the house. To her credit, Susan accepted the terms without hostility. When people asked, she tried to say we simply grew apart. Some believed it, others knew there was more to the story. Eventually, Susan admitted she had made a terrible mistake and took accountability for her actions. A few months later, Anna and I began a life together. Our small wedding was attended by close friends and family. Emily and Kate both came, offering their support, and as I stood there with Anna, I felt a renewed sense of peace and fulfillment. Years passed, and Anna and I built a happy life. She convinced me that fatherhood didn't have to be over, and after a successful vasectomy reversal, we welcomed 2 beautiful children into the world. We named our son after Anna's late husband, calling him Matt, and our daughter after my mother, affectionately calling her Maddie. I watched Anna and the children with gratitude every day. With Anna's son, Luke, I developed a strong, supportive relationship, becoming the father figure he'd lost. Over time, I realized how deeply fulfilling my life had become, far beyond what I'd thought possible. Then, on a quiet summer day, Emily's wedding brought us all together. I hadn't seen Susan in over 6 years, and when she approached me with her new husband, Greg, I could see she'd moved on. She introduced me to Greg, who seemed like a good man, and in a private moment she looked at me, regret softening her eyes. "I'm sorry for what I did to us, David," she whispered. "I'm happy for you, truly. But I'll always wonder what might have been." I gave her a nod. "I forgive you, Susan. We both moved on to better places, and I wish you and Greg nothing but happiness." With that, I kissed her on the forehead and took Anna's hand, leading her to the dance floor. As we danced, I looked into her smiling face and felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life we had built together. In the end, through all the twists and heartbreaks, I had found my way to a true partner, one who had always seen and valued me. As the music played, I knew that every step along the way had brought me right here, to Anna, to our family, and to the life I was always meant to have.